The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. People were bringing little children to Jesus for him to lay his hands on them and say a prayer. But the disciples turned them away. Jesus said, "Let the little children alone. Do not stop them coming to me. For it is to such as these that the kingdom of heaven belongs." Then he laid his hands on them and went on his way. The Gospel of the Lord. In the ancient world, certainly the world that gave us the Bible, the assumption was that gods were tied to place. Each place had its own god. So there was a desert god, and there was a different god or different gods in agricultural land. So it was natural when the chosen people leave behind the desert, wandering in the wilderness as they had for 40 years, and enter the agricultural land of the promised land, that they would leave behind their desert god and they would worship the gods of the agricultural land, the pagan gods. But what Joshua makes abundantly clear to the people as they enter the promised land and at the end of his life is that the God who found them and chose them in the desert, who led them on all their wandering, was a God not just of the desert, but a God also of the agricultural land. And we will serve the Lord, says Joshua. In other words, the radical vision of God that we hear in the speech of Joshua this morning is a vision of a God who is not tied to place, the God who is absolutely everywhere, and who is a jealous God, we are told. Why jealous? Not because insecure. A jealous God because God knows that if we start worshipping the other gods, we're on our way to death. Only the true God, the one true God, leads to life. And this was something that St. Maximilian Kolbe knew in the depth of his being. He knew that God was present even in the hellhole of the death camp, Auschwitz. And in the end, he said yes to that God as he goes to his death, an appalling death, starving for the most part, but finally finished off with a lethal injection. In all of this, what we see in Maximilian Kolbe and his witness as a martyr is precisely the image of the God who is in the death camp, the God who is everywhere, even in the darkest and most seemingly desperate places.